Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. See why we have selected the name as rainbow. Rainbow just doesn't stay at one place. It covers a lot of area. So if you take India, I have and in this rainbow, this episode of rainbow, I have taken. Yeah, yeah. I have taken 7 temples across India, which are spread over Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, and Orissa. So these are the and Delhi also. One from each, 6 of them, and second one is again from Tamil Nadu. Uh, for because Tamil Nadu and Karnataka are land of temples. There are numerous temples, majestic, gigantic, and magnificent. So let us see what they are. What I have selected for this. It doesn't mean these are the best. There are some more to spread out, like make a meaningful rainbow. I have selected of different places, from different places. Rainbow of temples in India, of course. R stands for remarkable. This is Sun Temple, Konark in Orissa. A stands for astonishing. That is Kailash Nath Temple, Maharashtra. I for incredible. This is Brihadeshwara Temple, Tamil Nadu. N for Neolithic. This is Sri Ranganatha Swami Temple, Tamil Nadu. B for baffling. Govateswara statue, Karnataka. O for outstanding. Ramappa Temple, Telangana. W for wonderful. Lotus Temple, New Delhi. Okay, now let us start with the R, remarkable. This is Sun Temple, Konark in Orissa. Okay. Is the temple or an university of education? That is my question to everybody. You will find the why I called it like this by the end of this presentation. Okay, King Narasimha Deva I of Eastern Ganga dynasty built this temple in 1250 CE. The temple follows this traditional style of Kalinga architecture. It is oriented towards the east so that the first rays of sunrise strike the main entrance. Designed and constructed in the form of a pyramid and stretching above like a tower. The area of the Sun Temple is 51,420 square yards, 857 by 540 feet. The temple complex consists of main temple, which is not existing now, chariot with 12 pairs of wheels drawn by 7 horses. Some of the horses are also missing now. These 12 pairs of wheels represent 12 months of the year. And one side is the Shukla Paksha, other side is Krishna Paksha. The 7 horses represent the 7 colors of the rainbow. Actually, in fact, the 7 horses originally were painted with the colors of the rainbow. All of us are aware, if sunlight passes through a prism, it becomes 7 different colors. That is the rainbow colors. Okay, this is an aerial view, general view of the temple. This temple Gopuram is black in color, so it is known as Black Pagoda. The shipping agent, the shipping industry people those days used to call this Black Pagoda as a referral point that they reached Konark. And the other temple in, in Orissa, it's a, Jagannath temple in Puri, It is known as White Pagoda because the Gopuram represents white pagoda, white color. Not exactly white, but it is known as White Pagoda by the Marayan people. Now, these are the different views of the temple. You can see the wheels, one only part of it can be shown here. And you see this totally black. And on the right side, you see there is illumination during the night time. This is the main entrance. You see 2 giant elephants and a giant lions standing on them. And these are the horse. This is one of the horses. And this is a horse close-up view with this man's head is missing. Okay, the Mughals destroyed a lot of temples in India, so this is partly damaged. That now we'll move to the technical part of it. See, this is the original temple. This part is now on this, which is in white color, is totally missing. What is in this brown shade only is available now to have a look. I will explain you about this magnet and other things. Yes. It is believed that a huge magnet was placed on top of the temple here at this location, and the stone walls are joined by metal straps which were held together by the power of the magnet. The Britishers actually they removed this magnet for some certain reasons. Reasons are exactly not clear. There are different versions about it. So then the whole thing collapsed. And the main idol was floating in the temple. It is not standing, or it is not sitting, or it is not supported anywhere. It is floating in the temple because of this power of the magnet. When the magnet was removed by the Britishers, the whole temple collapsed, and you can find some metal straps around this area, in this area still. Okay, now let us move further. The sculptures on the outer wall teach us a lot. This is the shape. It is like a pyramid, as I told you earlier. The lower layer belongs to age less than 5 years. Second layer is 6 to 10. Third layer is 16 to 11 to 16. Fourth one 16 to 20 years. Fifth one 20 to 45 years. And sixth layer, this is the top one, apex, above 45. Why it is called so? There is a reason behind it. Layer 1, the bottom layer, I'm sorry, yeah. Bottom layer of 2 feet. If you see here in this wall, below the Konark wheel, there are elephants and monkeys all over the temple and the bottom layer. So that is for the, these are on different poses, as if they're playing, they're fighting with each other. That will really amuse the kids. Children will enjoy a lot. The second layer is sculptures singing and playing musical instruments, dance forms, art games, etc. You can see here, and also here on this side, is different forms of art forms and musical instruments being played by different people. All are sculptured all over, up to layer 2. This is for the age groups of 6 to 10. That is for education also, learning also basically. Then layer 3, sundial and astronomy for all age groups of up to 16. Layer 4, sculptures of war, politics, and administration and international personalities, fashion, technology are depicted. These are in the age groups of 16 to 20. Of course, this is the Konark wheel, and there is a lot of science in this Konark wheel. It works as a sundial. I will explain you a little later. And there are some sculptures where the women wearing high heels are there. Okay, I could not get the exact photograph of that. I have seen it in the video. The women are wearing high heels. Those days itself, the fashion technology is very high. I mean, very much advanced stage. And the women decorating their hair with different type of ornaments and all those sculptures are depicted at the level 4. And this is the photograph. Yeah, this is for the administration. People, their Raja Maharaja conducting his darbar. Then some of the animals working around. I mean, as a procession rather. This is the meaning of, this is war scenes are also there, political administration and all international, some of the personal, I could not get the exact photographs. So many sculptures are at this level 4, all around the temple. Only thing, we should have time to identify them properly. Layer 5, erotic sculptures narrate sex education. Here there is a custom, there's a strong belief in Orissa, that's if a childless couple visits this temple and stays in that area for 21 days, visit the temple twice a day, morning and evening, take one procession every day, both times, they are blessed with children. That is the very, very, very strong belief, and there are n number of cases proving that point. Layer 6, sculptures of various gods enlighten you the philosophy. That means you are now above 45. Just think about philosophy and God. Okay, this is for the level 5. I don't want to show you much about. I'm not explaining anything on that. And this is of course level 5, the top level 6. Sorry, the sun god. Actually, on the temple there are 3 sculptures of this sun god. One on the eastern side, one at the middle, where at the noon time, the sunlight exactly falls on him, and another on the western side is the setting sun. The sculpture on the eastern side will show absolutely energetic, smiling sun god. And at the noon, it is very fierce. I mean, he is at the peak of his strength or vigor. Then in the western side, he looks tired. That is, you can see all the three photogrammic sculptures. If you observe closely, you find all the details, minute details. Even the hairstyle of this man will be different, like that. You have only one has to observe very, very closely. Then this is about the sundial. See, this is marked 6 a.m., 7:30 a.m., 9 a.m. up to 6 p.m. Then, of course, midnight. Okay. Here, there are larger spokes numbered 1 to 8 all around. There are 8 of them. Then, dividing these two, there is a smaller spoke. Again, 8 of them. So, if these 12 hours are divided by the 16, by the 8, it becomes 1 hour 30 minutes, right? 12 divided by 8. Then further, it becomes again half 45 minutes. And each of these wheels, if you see the close-up view on the right side picture, there are small beads all around. There are 15 beads from here to here. From the larger spoke to the smaller one, 15 beads are there. So each bead represents 3 minutes. Okay. The shadow of the axle. See, sun is rising, let us say from here, from the east. The shadow is cast here. As it goes up, the shadow is cast somewhere here. So you will know the time. Suppose it is in between, you have to count the number of beats, multiplied by 3, add to this time, you will get the exact time. Same way for the, there are not all the wheels don't represent exactly the same. 2 are meant for morning time and 2 are for night time. You can the night time also, when the moonlight falls, same logic applies. Of course, we will not call it AM, we will call it as PM. Then the 100 rupee, the 10 rupee note, the recent one, depicts this Konark wheel on the backside by the recent one. Then we'll move to Kailash Nath Temple. Amazing, rather. Astonishing and amazing. You can have any number of adjectives for this temple, because this is na bhuto na bhavishyati. That's, I don't think anybody can ever make a complex of this size the way they have done it. We can construct even bigger temples, but the method of construction is totally unique here. I will explain you that. This is the cave number 16 of 34 cave temples in Ellora, popularly known as Ellora Caves. It's very close to Aurangabad. This is the world's oldest single rock carved multi-storied temple complex. Vertical excavation method is followed, that is removal of the rock from top to complete the construction. Actually, there is a story here why they have to do this vertical excavation method. One of the Maratha kings was seriously ill. So his wife, the queen, took an oath that if the Raja comes out, recovers fully, she will construct a temple. And not only that, she will be on fast till she sees the shikhar of the temple. Shikhar means the topmost point of the temple. So fortunately, the king recovered, and the queen, as she desired, she wants to construct a temple and observe fasting till the completion of the temple. Till this is the top of the shikhar, not the completion of the temple. So all the ministers, there were a lot of discussions, and everybody confirmed it will take at least a couple of months to construct a temple in total. Then she is worried. Nobody can survive for 2 months or 3 months without food. But one architect by name Kokasa, he approached her. He said, I will get you the shikhar in 6 days' time, 1 week time. Then he said he will construct the temple from the top to the bottom by removing the material, excess rock. Okay. So she happily agreed. It was done. And of course, both king and queen are happy. Now the method of construction. It is more than 2 lakh. Actually, there are different versions about the number of quantity of rock removed in this area. It varies from 1.5 lakh tons to 4 lakh tons. But as a conservative estimate, as per my little bit calculation, it is around 2 to 2.5 lakh tons, not less than that, definitely. Construction started in 756 CE and completed in phases after 150 years. 6 generations of kings and workers were involved in this construction because they kept on adding to these existing structures. Temple complex is carved out of hill of 165 feet long. You can see on this photograph, and 109 feet wide and 98 feet high. Even with nowadays, we have the latest technology of 3D technology, CAD and other computer software, but it is practically impossible to construct similar temple complex of this magnitude. Why? I will explain you in the next couple of slides. This is, of course, on the right side photograph. It's an aerial view of the temple complex. It looks small from the aerial view, but, and what I request you notice this bridge. In this, there are a number of bridges all over that is connecting these buildings. Or they're not temples exactly, but it's the blocks, you can say. Scooping out a rock to shape the internal chambers of each block or temple requires enormous skill, forethought, and meticulous planning and execution. For example, you see this, okay, they are excavating from the top, fine. They have left this gap also, it's fine. If they don't leave this portion uncut, later on they cannot insert this because it will be open. And now this block is ready, let us say, hollow. It is not hollow, it is solid. You have to make them hollow by removing the internal material also. Internal material means you should know what is the wall thickness and where are the pillars to be located, that part to be left open, I mean uncut. So that the complexities are there, and they can't even, okay, let us mark inside and go inside and mark. There's nothing to mark inside because everything is solid. So it requires enormous skill, planning, and meticulous execution. One mistake there, you have to forget this entire hill. You have to look for another hill. There are many tunnels inside the temple complex which are inaccessible. Okay. It is believed that an underground city existed below the temple connected by tunnels. UNESCO declared Ellora Caves as the World Heritage Site in 1983. The number is 243, that certificate number. Another unique are Shaivites, and those right are on the Vaishnavites. Bridges connect the galleries of the temples, as I explained you here. Actually, Mughal King Aurangzeb has sent an army of 1,000 soldiers to destroy this temple, and they tried for 1 year and hardly could damage, very little damage they could do. So they gave up and then went back. Actually, you can hear in the right, this is one of the photographs. You can see the trunk of the elephants are missing. That's all the damage they could do here also. And very, very nominal, some heads are chopped off. Otherwise, the basic structure, entire building remained intact. And again, as I told you, leaving this part open. Okay, when you cut vertically, probably you will make a rectangle like this, straight cut. Then this integrate designs, cuttings have to be done. It again requires high skill and meticulous planning. One mistake, this has to be discarded. Okay, this is there's the cantilever here. You can see, you understand what is the cantilever. We have all sunshades now, like that. So this cantilever is about 20 feet long, which is the largest cantilevered rock in the world. Nowhere you find a 20 feet long cantilever and an overburden on top. It's not just a slab of 6 inches or 4 inches. There is overburden, that means hill rock is there on top, which is uncut. And this is again the corridors. You see, they have to leave this pillar spacing and remove the internal part so that people can walk around. That is the complexity. Again, these are the elephants' trunks knocked off. There is an aerial view. Now you will appreciate the complexity of construction here. Small temples or gopurams all around the main temple, and the gaps are to be left properly. So that makes this construction of the temple from the top. You see, if you are constructing a building from the bottom, you have the foundation, you have the walls, you know what is the thickness of the wall, what is the thickness of the beam, what is the thickness of the slab. But here you have to be cautious while doing that here. And again, not only just cutting the rock, the carvings, the sculptures, each one takes quite long time. Yes, this is a victory pillar. This is about 95 feet high, cut through, and on the walls of the temple, on the panels of Ramayana, stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata are depicted. This is the main temple, which is inside. As I told you, you can now visualize it better. You have to remove the rock all around, leaving these temples intact, the beam portion to intact, and start keeping excavating in between material, which is more complicated as far as even today. It's not easy. And more complex thing is, you see, this is already at first floor. Then this is first floor, second floor, third floor. Multi-storied, again, corridors, entrances, steps, sculptures. That makes this temple unique. And probably I rate, as an individual, I rate this is the best engineering skills displayed anywhere. There cannot be anything superior than this, is my personal opinion. Again, you have this new 20 rupee note depicting the picture of this Ellora Kailashnath temple. This is the actual one. This is the photograph of the thing. Now we'll move to the third temple, Brihadeshwara temple, Tanjore, Tamil Nadu. Okay, this actually we covered earlier, but anyway, we will go in detail. Temple is constructed on plain ground without any foundation. This is what is very crucial about this temple. Normally we have 4 feet foundation, 10 feet foundation, depending, or even 20 feet deep foundation, depending on the height of the structure, weight of the structure. But here it is on just started and just on the plain ground, no foundation, zero. How they could do it, I will explain you. Interlocking of rock technique is used in construction, and no cement, no mortar, even those days, no iron and steel, forget it, nothing, only rocks. And this is all granite, hard granite. The kumbham are the top of the gopuram. You can see this is a longer version. This is a close-up view. This one, this part of it's a single rock of 80 tons, weighing 80 tons. And it is at a height of, from the ground level, it is at a height of 216 feet. Okay, now how this structure is stable? The secret is the base width. Okay, I will come to that little later. Okay, this temple is 1010 years old. We can keep on adding years to it later on, and withstood many storms, cyclones, and 6 earthquakes, but still stands tall and intact. We know the Big Ben and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, they bend down. They are off the central line. But here, this structure remained intact even after 1000 years and multiple earthquakes. Why so? Why it is? Because the base of the temple here, it is 99 feet square. Length is 99 feet, width is 99 feet. Up to here, it is the same height is maintained, same dimension is maintained. And the gopuram starts, it is reduced in dimension, but perfect square up to the top. There are 13 or 14 floors, levels. At each level, they reduce the dimension from 99 to maybe 95 or 90, like that. We don't have the exact calculation. This is my guesswork. On top, it may be about 20 feet or so. So, and because of the base width is so large, you don't find the shadow of this temple anywhere, any time of the day. 130,000 tons of granite is used in this construction. And for your information, there are no granite mines or hills at least 150 kilometer radius of the shore in Tamil Nadu. If those from Tamil Nadu may correct me if I'm wrong. The main deity, Lord Shiva, is 29 feet high and the Nandi is 12 feet high. That I will show you the photographs. Okay. This is the different views of the temple. Again, the beautiful architecture, the sculptures, everything you can see, both the photographs. And we will move to the next slide. This is the main entrance, Dwarapalkas on top here. And again, see the typical Dravidian culture, I mean architecture. It shapes, it's not a straight line. If you notice, it's not a straight line, it's a curve. It's a smooth curve that again requires a lot of skill. This is the main temple, main ling, Shivling, 29 feet high. You can see there's a platform here for doing the Abhishekam. And these are the inside views. There are so many sculptures like this. This one, a devotee doing his puja for the Lord. Then this Nandi, there's an outside, there's a Nandi. It's 12 feet high. This is not the highest. The highest is in Lepakshi, Andhra Pradesh. This is not the largest, not the highest. This is not the largest. And you find on the ceiling different paintings. I'll show you that in the next photograph. And what I request you notice these ornaments, the way they are being sculptured, beautiful. Including, actually, we don't have the bottom of the view of the hill or the legs of the bull, where even the partition of the feet is clearly depicted. This is Nandi Mantapa, where of course you have seen the Nandi here. You can see the roof, the paintings. These are the, on the right side is the close-up view of those paintings. And just 1,000-year-old paintings, still intact like Ajanta paintings. We'll move further. There are murals on the walls of the temple. Inside, you find, along with the sculptures at the higher level, at the ground level, you find these type of murals all around the temple inside. Again, intact even after 1,000 years. We'll just move further. Then there is a Muruga temple in the north courtyard of the temple complex. Again, you see the architecture, the sculptures. This is all carved out of granite. Those who are in granite industry will understand how difficult it is to make a small groove in a granite slab. Then there is a Chandeswara shrine. He is a meditating yogi. There is a temple here. This is the temple next to the main temple. We'll go further. Okay. Then interestingly, you find Ardhanarishwara statue also in the same temple complex on the outside. This is Ardhanarishwara temple. And a Vishnu statue in a Shiva temple. That shows that we believe that there's no much of difference between Vishnu and Shiva. And they coexist. All these Vaishnavas and Shaivas coexist together. Then we'll move to Sri Ranganatha temple, Sri Rangam, Tirusirapalli, Tamil Nadu. Gigantic, this one. This is the aerial view of the temple complex. This is the main entrance. And it is such a complex structure. I will explain you. Yeah, this is here. Okay, I will not able to read all the things. Actually, here they have shown only 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. Boundaries. These are all walls, compound walls with the entrances, exit, entrance A, B, C, all those things. There are the main entrances. But there are 3 more rings outside. The total, it is 7 structures, 7 compound walls. First 3 compound walls, the space between the first 3 compound walls is used now as commercial shopping complexes and other things for commercial use. The temple complex is now left out is these 4 walls within these 4 partitions. The main temple is here at the center. There are, I can show you what is X. X is elephant stable, and S, this is very interesting. There is the 1,000-column mantapam, and so many complex things are there. If we go in detail, I have to spend, I can spend only 1 hour explaining you this. Then highlights of this temple complex are Temple is constructed during the 3rd century BC and up to 9th century or even 17th century renovation continued. At one time, this temple complex was abandoned. Then later in 9th century, it was started renovating and continued till 17th century. Srirangam is an island situated in Tiruchi district, Tamil Nadu, located between banks of Kaveri and Kolidam rivers. If you remember, I was telling about the natural wonders of India. I covered this as one of the islands, river islands in India. The temple occupies an area of 156 acres with 81 shrines, 21 gopurams, 39 pavilions, and many water tanks integrated into the complex. This is India's largest functioning Hindu temple and the 3rd in the world. Angkor Wat in Cambodia is 402 acres, is the largest, and Swaminarayan Temple in New Jersey is 165.6 acres, is the 2nd largest Hindu temple. But this with 156 is in the largest in India, or even you can say in Asia. Okay. Next is, it is encircled, as I told you, it's by 7 massive concentric walls called prakarams, with a collective length of over 6 miles. The outer wall is 2 miles long, that is the outermost wall, where the tallest gopuram is there. Battery operated autos are available inside for movement for the benefit of senior citizens. So that gives an indication of the complexity or the area you have to walk around. Actually, when we toured this North Tamil Nadu, we traveled for almost 6 days. Each day our walking is around 6 kilometers. Each only walking, that too inside the temples only. So that shows the enormity of the size of the complexity of these temples. Then Rajagopuram stands majestically above all other towers with a height of 236 feet, hence becomes the tallest tower in Asia. This is what I have shown you in the aerial view also. This is a closer view of this. Next, this is the 1000 pillar hall. There are a lot of interesting things about this hall which I will be sharing now. You can have a look. You see, this is the people average take. If you take the height as about 5.5 feet or 6 feet, is just going to the ground level. From there, you can see, imagine the height at least 30-40 feet is minimum height of the hall. This is the main idol, Ranganatha Swami in the sleeping posture inside. And this is, of course, the Utsav Vigrahams of the Lord. This is the 1000 pillar, I mean, this hall, 1000 pillar hall. An elephant also is available there. And you see one of the architecture on the wall and the pillars. Again, if you remember, we were talking about, I have not covered, sorry. If this pattern of structure will absorb sound so that there is no resounding echo effect. That is the reason that all this, there you will not find it that's just a straight line. Hello? Okay. And of course, the complexity of the structure, the horses, the horseman holding it, trying to control. And you will notice none of them are identical. They're all different. All the structures or the carvings on these each pillar are different. You'll not find them identical. Then Sri Ramanujacharya, 1017 to 1137. The body of Sri Ramanujacharya is preserved and can be seen here. We all know mummies of Egypt and pyramids, but here we have the body of Sri Ramanujacharya intact, preserved. How they do it? Twice a year, a coat of camphor mixed with vermilion is applied. Okay, this is the temple of where the body is kept. This is the place where the body is kept, and this is the body. It is in sitting posture. If you will notice in Egypt, the mummies are all in sleeping position, wrapped in cloths, a lot of paste and other things is applied. But here, this one, 1137, but still this is intact. As I told you, twice a year, camphor and vermilion paste is applied. You can clearly see the hand in the mudra posture and what you call Jayadanda in hand. Then the top of the Gopuram is gold plated totally. This is a closer view. You can see the carvings again, the designs, multiple. It is a very complex structure. I mean, artwork with the gold. We'll move further. Now we'll move further to Gomateshwara statue, Shravanabelagola, Karnataka. If you notice this statue, you will be wondering why these, what you call this, sorry. There are leaves and the stem and leaves of trees are incorporated on the body, on the legs and the hands. Why it is so? I will explain you. Okay, the story is like this. The king Rishabhanatha has 100 sons, and mainly two are very popular are Bahubali and Bharata. He has two more daughters also. So the king has distributed entire his the kingdom to all the 100 sons equally. But Bharata is not happy with what he got. So he challenged all his brothers to fight with him or surrender. 98 surrendered to him. Bahubali did not. So he challenged Bahubali also, and it was evident the war is inevitable. So the ministers, they discussed between them, and they said if there is a war between these two giants, no one will be left alive. Only one man will remain, maybe with few handful of people. So what they suggested is, you don't fight with the complete army. We will conduct two games for you. Whoever is the winner in both the games will be the king. If both the games are tied, then we'll have a war. War means a fight with arms. The first game is both should sit across to each other and look into each other's eyes non-stop without blinking. The person who blinks or moves away his eyes from the other person is the loser. So when they started doing this, their childhood memories started coming into their mind, how they played, how they spent their childhood with their brothers and their sisters, and how they are treated by their parents. All those childhood memories ran into their mind, and one of them shifted his eyes. He could not look into his face, other man's face continuously. Then the second contest. Again, they should stand in a knee deep of water, then splash water on each other. Whoever stops first is the loser. This time the second person stopped. Again, the same thing happened. They remembered how they played together in the courtyards or outside or wherever it is. Sorry. So there's a tie. So the fight is inevitable. The fight is with a shield and a sword. You know, Bahubali is obviously stronger because of the name indicates Bahubali means strong arms. And he was about to kill Bharata. Then suddenly he realized, whom I am killing and what for? For the sake of kingdom? I don't want this kingdom with bloodshed, at the cost of my brother's life. So he left for a forest, started tapasya in this standing posture. So that is how this, then what happened? Okay. So all these things started growing on him. The ants made their nest. That is the reason if you see the base is much wider, and the snakes made their house there, all those things. But he was not able to attain salvation. His father sent a message to him through his daughter. You give up your ego. You remove that I factor. Just now we discussed about I factor in your yoga class. You remove that I factor from you, mind, then you will attain salvation. So far, he could do so, and he was now treated as the first, Tirthankara of Jainism, and worshipped even now. So this is the story behind this statue. Now we'll go into details of this statue. Gomateshwara statue is 57 feet tall and 40 feet wide at the base. It is located in Vindhyagiri Hills, 3,347 feet above sea level. This world's largest monolithic statue made of white granite weighing nearly 1,000 tons. Okay. The statue was carved during the period of Chamundaraya, the minister of Ganga king Rajamalla, between 982 and 983 AD or CE. The Mahamastaka Abhisheka is performed once in 12 years with milk, sugarcane juice, saffron paste, powders of sandalwood, turmeric, and vermilion, and flowers. Research found that these powders and liquids act as anti-corrosive agents, and thus this statue appears new even after 1,000 years. Another important thing I want to tell you before I change the slide on the statue is, if you draw a central line here across, absolutely identical. The left and right are absolutely identical with the precision to the extent of 0.0001 millimeter. How they could do it, we will see in the next slides. See, at the foot of this statue, on either side, one on the left, another on the right. Of course, they are not visible in this photograph. They are here. These statues, you find these statues holding some typical tools. You can say something objects. You can call them as objects here also. And they represent exactly like our today's modern day machining tools. Okay, of course, I could not get more photographs of the modern tools, but we have similar things also. So there is a possibility that these people use these things to make it the surface smooth and a smooth finish, to get a smooth finish on the surface of the statue. The sculptors, whoever has done this. Another interesting thing is how the statue of 1,000 tons has gone to the top of the hill. There is a theory, nobody has taken it to the top. They have cut out of the rock on the mountain itself. But when they analyze the samples of the statue and the rock available on the hilltop, they don't match. They're totally different. So it is confirmed that the statue is built at the bottom and taken to the top. Okay. So how they have taken it to the top? On the way, there are steps to go uphill. And of course, nowadays, ropeways are also available. No, not ropeway, the dolis are available. There is a statue, there's a mantap and a statue of a lady here holding something in her hand, but she is not touching that. You can see this globe, round like thing, which is floating in her hands. So this represents maybe magnetic levitation technique used today's modern days technology. You know, all our super fast trains, they use this technology. The rail won't, the train won't touch the rails. It floats on the rails. And the magnetic power pulls the train forward. Mostly you find them in bullet trains. So similar technology is used. There is a theory it is used by the olden days itself. Those days is 1,000 years back itself. These are the interesting facts about that. Now we will move to Ramappa Temple, Palampet, Mulgu district, Telangana. This temple, if you look by size, it's very, very, very small compared to the temples what we have seen now, or some more which are existing in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. But it has embedded so many technical things in it. I will take you through that. This is the Shiva temple named after the sculptor Ramappa, perhaps the only temple to be named after sculptor who designed it and executed this. This temple is built in 1213 AD by Kakatiya king Ganapati Deva. The lower half of the temple, you can see, you can divide it into two parts, the lower half from here to here, then the Gopuram, the other half is the Gopuram. The lower half is made of sandstone and the Gopuram is built using lightweight floating bricks made up of a mixture of mud and other materials heated to 1,000 degrees centigrade. They weigh about 25% of a solid mud block. Entire Gopuram is built this. Nowadays, you find all these bricks are similar to the present day autoclaved aerated concrete used in high-rise buildings to withstand earthquakes. That is the latest technology, but in 12th 13th century itself it is used here. Okay. Similar floating blocks are lightweight bricks you find in Dhanishkodi in Rameswaram, where our Ramasetu starts. In fact, there is a big tub, a couple of stones are there. You lift them, it is very heavy, but you drop into the tub, they float. Okay, now coming to the foundation part. Sandbag technology was employed in the foundation, which is 10 feet deep and filled with granite powder, non-centrifugal cane sugar, sand, and other material which they could not even identify till now. The plinth beams were not connected rigidly with the columns, allowing them to pop up in case of an earthquake. I will explain you that. This temple withstood a massive earthquake on 1st April 1843, whereas all other structures nearby are totally destroyed. This is absolutely intact. Telling the plinth beams popping up from the floor. So you can, this about 14 to 16 inches, they popped up. There are multiple beams came up, but the building or the structure was intact. Here also there's another photograph close-up view of the plinth beam because of the earthquake. If you see the internal thing, it is much more complex actually. Here we can see on the right side a close-up. These are the pillars. These are multiple pillars are there. There's a close-up view of the pillar. If you, the wonderful thing is you can put your finger between you can insert your finger and it will pass through the legs of the ladies standing there. That is a gap. That means there's a gap between the leg and the pillar. And if you see, this type of cutting is not possible with a chisel or anything, though it is presumed that rock melting technology was used, and all these pillars are made out of molds. You can see here a small and the middle part, a small string is passed through. That means such a narrow gap is allowed, is created, which is not possible with chisels and other things. This is the outer side. You can see the damage here because that is because of the earthquake. Here also you find a lot of statues of different color because they are not made of sandstone, but there are again it is rock melting technology used to create them. Here also the close-up view. Actually, in one of the pillars there were no carvings or no statues. No sculptures. It is plain, but it is not perfectly plain. It is distorted. There's a warping in the structure. The pillar surface, which clearly indicates it is a mold only, not chiseled out of a rock. It's a rock melting technology is used there. Here on the left side, you find the Ashtadikpalakas on all the 8 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the right side, this is the statues right outside the main entrance, the main centrum, Garbhalaya, just before the Garbhalaya. You find this stem, a Lord Krishna is there. Below him, there's a tree. This is the stem of the tree. If you tap here, you find a different sound. You tap at the middle, you get a different sound. And at bottom, typically one more different sound. Now, I will cymatic patterns on the ceilings. The sculptors had made these cymatic patterns utilizing the marvelous architecture and the great knowledge of geometry and sounds and vibrations. I will okay. This is the cymatic pattern. You see here different types of designs, how they arrived at these designs. I will try to play the video, but it's not, it's a very small one, short one, couple of minutes. Yogender ji, I will play the, let us see, because there's no song or anything, it's only music, it's only sound. I'll stop at this. See, if you observe with the uh, change in the sound level or the frequency of vibration, they are assuming different pattern. The sand on the plate assuming different patterns depending on the frequency. You know, we remember in our school days we used to use the tuning fork. If you hammer, I mean, hit a tuning fork, you will hear the resonating noise. So the sand particles take different shapes as per that, as per the frequency of the sound. So this is how they are made, and you find this type of roof ceilings in most of the Tamil Nadu temples and Karnataka temples, not only in Andhra, they are everywhere. That means our ancestors know this cymatic pattern technique long back. Now we come to the last one. I will rush through. I think just out of time, sir. No. Okay. This is Baha'i Temple of Worship in New Delhi. Baha'i Temple is constructed by L&T ECC in 1986, designed by Forbo Sahaba, an Iranian architect. Greek white marble is used to construct 27 petals of the lotus. Lotus is a common symbol in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Islam. The structure comprises of 27 freestanding petals grouped into 3 layers of 9 petals each. I will explain you in the photograph. The design is such that sunlight filters through inner petals and spreads throughout the prayer hall, and no artificial lighting is necessary. Interesting part, or the most complex thing in this structure is there is no straight line in any of the 27 petals in any direction. If you see the photograph, you will appreciate that. So this is the overall view, and this is the view from the top. Here we find these are the outer one, 9 of them. These are the middle layers, and these are the inner layers. This is the overall aerial view from the top. This is the inner one. This is the middle one, and this is the outer one. And there are 9 lakes all around, and 9 parks are developed. There is a view at the night time lighting arrangement. This is the inside view of the hall. The Lotus Temple is spread over 26 acres of land with 9 pools and lush green gardens. The prayer hall can accommodate 2,500 people with a seating capacity of 1,200. The height of the temple is 112.4 feet and 230 feet in diameter.
Oh.
Most visited religious building in the world, with more than 45 lakh persons visited during 2003. Received many national and international awards for architecture, exterior lighting, excellence in concrete structure, etc. In fact, one of my friends in L&T ECC was working earlier when he was involved in this project. He confirmed me that L&T has incurred loss in this structure, in this project. You know, normally L&T ECC will have at least 25% profit, net profit. But this structure, because of the complexity of the nature of these curves, all in all directions, made them use heavily in these reinforcement bars. That was they had tough time in getting these reinforcement bars bent to this shape, symmetrical shape on all the 3 layers. This is an internal model in the exhibited in the hall. There's an exhibition. There's also a theater showing the film of the construction of this temple. So we will move. This is the inner dome. This is our innermost layer petal, middle one, and the outer one. This is the dome where accommodates for the prayer part of it. Now this is the lighting. You close up, close up view of the entire structure in the night time. Right. Okay. These are not the only temples. There is a major list. I will not read all of them because I'm just out of time, I think. So many are there. This is only I could list, or the list is endless. Very few are highlighted. So this is the technical knowledge and expertise our ancestors had right from the age of 3rd century till 14th century. Enormous structures, gigantic structures were created. Unfortunately, we don't pay much attention to all of them. Thank you so much. This is the end of my